Good morning, this is Alamon, and welcome to the first full episode of Kerbageddon Science Incorporated. Now, if you haven't watched the introduction, I highly encourage that you do so. It sets up the background for this. But yeah, basically, Bob was a little bit ticked off when, Bill and Jeb decided to give Kerbin another moon. But, he came around and realized, hey, there's always some science to be done. So, when life gives you Gilly, make Gillamade. I don't know. So they're going to send up a little kind of colonization core. We're using TAC Life Support for one thing. We're also using the Dysfunctional Products Horizontal Space Bases mod, which I'm quite excited about. It looks like a really awesome mod, so we're going to put it through the paces. But yeah, so we have this life support core. It has some living quarters. It has lots of food and water and oxygen, lots of solar panels. Nothing really to do science yet. But, we have to kind of establish our footprint, choose a good site. And so here we go. We've gone out to meet this orbit, and then, you can always get an encounter with something with one burn once you're touching its orbit. So that's what we managed to do. What matters then is how big your correction burn is going to be, or rather, well, with Rendezvous, it's more your, intercept. I don't know what exactly to say, but for this is a capture burn. So here we go. We get captured around Gilly. What I eventually realize as this goes on a bit is there's very little reason to bother with any of this, fancy schmancy orbital stuff when it comes to Gilly. Oh, wait, let's take a look at this. So beautiful. Now, you might think, it's kind of easy for me to just stick this in orbit around Kerbin, basically a low Kerbin orbit, and make a whole series out of it. But really, a big part of why I play this game is it's so beautiful. It depends on the mods you use and what other visual enhancements you can get, but just being able to see the orbital mechanics in action and all that, it's amazing. Just, oh god, that's so beautiful. Because we'll be intercepting Gilly so close to Kerbin, we're always going to have this stunning view. So I don't really mind making it a little easier. I think that it makes it a better experience for me, makes it a better experience for you. And, I don't have to show off all kinds of fancy trick flying all the time, right? I mean, there are plenty of folks who do that. And, I've had some fun stories in my time. Whoa. Wait, whoa. Why are those engines on? That's not right. No. I must have bumped Z at some point. Okay, let's go retrograde. Okay, no, can't turn fast enough. And we're out of fuel. Oh, great. This, all right, let's think. All right, well, you know how I said I don't really mind making this a little easier as long as the experience is good for everybody? Well, yeah, we could see a nice fiery explosion and kill Jeb and Bill and Bob and the other guy. I forget who they brought with them. But that would be a lousy start to a series. So let's use our good friend HyperEdit. Well, we had to use HyperEdit to get Gilly here in the first place. So, why stop there, right? This won't be a recurring thing, though. That was a just freak occurrence while I was trying to get a good shot. I somehow sent us on a death dive. Oh, so beautiful. Look at that. Oh, it's like a postcard. All right. We have tons of asteroids around Gilly here. I thought that this would just be a really interesting setup. And, we'll see. This will kind of develop as we go along, what we're going to do with these asteroids, how we're going to interact with them. But by having them all orbiting Gilly, we keep them all in one basically central place. And we just don't have all that extra overhead of trying to fly out and intercept and just all that stuff. I mean, we've all seen tons of things like that. People doing your run-of-the-mill asteroid intercept kind of missions. So I wanted to do something a little different. This is showing off, by the way, the DP Horizontal Space Bases mod. So we can see it takes on this horizontal orientation. It has thrusters that point down that way. We also have, landing gear bays that point down that way, which give a flat surface for the landing gears to attach to. There are all sorts of specialty parts. I didn't get into the things like cargo bays and stuff yet, because this is just our core. And, oh, that Kerbin. Ah! And I think that's the moon in the background. I'm looking at this very pixelated, very grainy preview window as I'm doing this post-commentary. Oh, it's just so wonderful. Now, I'm obviously looking for a place to park here, trying to decide, okay, what's best. We want some flat land, but we also want to be, on a pretty prominent point. I mean, Gilly's kind of weird, because on the one hand, it actually has extreme topographical variation, but it's so small that the curvature ends up dominating that effect anyway. So no matter where you are, you kind of look like you're on a mountain. You kind of look like you're in a valley. It's all very vague. And the map view doesn't quite look the same as the view you get when you're just, at the ship level like this. It's times like this that I kind of wish I did have live commentary as well, so I could switch back and forth, see what I was thinking at the time. A lot of the biggest KSP YouTubers seem to exclusively do post-commentary. Scott Manley is an exception. He does mostly post-commentary, but he has some live stuff as well that he mixes back and forth. It's like, all right, now to old me to see what's going to happen and all that. That's pretty fun. One reason I haven't been doing that is that I do live commentary and everything else that I do for this channel. And although I don't, I'm not a kid, I don't live with my parents or anything, but I am married, I live with my wife, and, sometimes maybe she'll be out in the living room here as well. My desktop's in the living room, and, she'll be working on something or doing something, and KSP is a game that I can do where I can just... shut up and just wear my headphones and not be prattling on. So, that's probably the biggest reason I haven't done live recordings. But, maybe sometimes I'll do that. We'll see. I spent so much time recording Europa Universalis 4, and that really requires live commentary. It would be crushingly boring and almost impossible, really, to try to do post-commentary for that sort of game. I mean, with Kerbal Space Program, you actually get a lot of downtime, a lot of stuff that gets cut out, a lot of footage that gets compressed. Whereas EU4, it's almost always about, that in-the-moment decision-making, and almost every moment's important. All right, here we go, in for our final landing. And the gravity's so low. We can't time accelerate. Well, we could do physical time acceleration. But, even 4 times... Well, actually, yeah, I guess I am doing physical time warp right now. Still so slow. The gravity is incredibly low. I'm sure many of you have made the... well, I want to phrase it as made the mistake, but, had the experience of jumping on the surface of Gilly, and that takes a very long time. Look at that shadow, by the way. That's awesome. When the solar panels are twisting around trying to fund the sun, it makes the shadows thicker or thinner. There's so much to appreciate in a game like this. Just how you are seeing, the math, as it were, the physics. I mean, you can see a lot of that, just normal real life, out and about. There's always interesting things to notice, but a game like this really brings it to the forefront. Anyway, we haven't even quite landed yet, but we're going to pop out our engineer in a second, Bill Kerman. Tell you a little secret, that's actually my name, and so it's always a little awkward for me that one of the 3 Kerbal heroes has my name. It somehow feels very narcissistic to use that Kerbal. But he is the engineer, so this is his job. Now, if you saw the teaser video number 2, you'll probably know what I'm about to do here. So I'm using the DP horizontal space bases, but also Kerbal attachment system. And the reason I want to do that for this Gilly base is gravity is so low on Gilly, it's pretty easy to bump into something by accident and just send it flying. This is more of a concern with, little vertical rockets, but I didn't really want to leave anything to chance. So we can attach these ground pylons, anchor them into the ground, and then stick a radial attachment port onto the pylon, and then use a winch to attach the ship through the winch to the radial attachment port, to the ground pylon, and to Gilly, which is way too many steps, but, it works. And here comes the second one. One thing I realized in retrospect is I really should have put some lights around the winches pointing downward so that I could get a sense for where to center these, because it's like impossible to do this. I think if I remember right, if you try to change the camera orientation while placing something, I think it gets rid of the placing interface. So it's just very hard to get proper 3D perspective. By the way, those winches are the wrong type of winch. I should have done vertical stack winch, but I did a vertical, I think it's called a radial winch. So the winch always sticks out to the side there instead of coming straight down. I didn't realize that there was a difference between the two until it was too late. And that's not a part that you can detach and reattach. I wish it were, or else I would have replaced them for sure. But we're stuck with those. Alright, now let's give them a little try. Now I have found that if you put enough strain on them, the ground pylons will, just like a beat or a turnip or something, they will rip out of the ground. Radial attachment ports on the ground pylon can also pop off. But as long as we don't put much strain on these, it'll work fine. And at this point, I'm playing with the tension on the lines, because if we have too much tension, things are going to be under strain. We might get weird vibrations or parts interacting weirdly. If we have too much, what do I want to say, too much give in the line, then it can rock around, it can be bumped around a bit, and it starts to defeat the purpose of having it tethered at all. So we want to reach a happy medium, where it has a little bit of give. It's not under great strain, but it's, it's not going to fly off anywhere. It's not going to tilt over. And let's take a look at this. Let's time accelerate. And now this looks really cool at night at first, until you realize, even though it looks like nighttime, the solar panels are still getting sunlight. That's why they're still lit up. So it actually doesn't look quite as good in the middle of the night. But gosh, I love these horizontal bases. It's just gorgeous. They don't take that much work. They're very stable because they have a very low center of mass. They get these nice, squat kind of structure. Kyle Kid's video on the DP Horizontal Space Bases mod includes a Duna landing where there's this large base, quite long, with tons and tons of parachutes on it, and it looks like it's about to snap apart when all the parachutes are deploying, but it stayed together, and man, it's just such a cool effect. Alright, so let's just take a look here at the big picture again. So we have this base on Gilly, tons of asteroids flying around, although at very slow speeds due to the low gravity. And then we are on this pretty eccentric and inclined orbit around Kerbal as well. Alright, so we're obviously not done with the base yet. Time for launch number 2. And we're going to accelerate through this a bunch. So we have the life support core. That's the main purpose of that first module. Have some living quarters, like I said, the food, the oxygen, the water, some reprocessing facilities. The only thing that we need to resupply with is food, theoretically, but that would take literally years of in-game time before they run out of food, at least at the current rate of consumption. We do have 2 scientist Kerbals. Oh, look at that. Look at that. On our, our injection burn just to touch the orbit, it turns out that we basically have an encounter straight off. So we can do this in just one burn. Use the maneuver node editor to tweak things a little bit. I do use MechJeb quite heavily. Mostly just because, well, like I have said, this game to some extent turns into a pretty picture generator, right? You just set up things just right, go on these interesting missions, set up cool bases, Look at how things, whiz past each other. I mean, it's beautiful. And I can certainly do a lot of flying without any maneuver nodes. I have gotten quite good at all that stuff. But sometimes I want to play like that. I want to do the daredevil pilot thing. Other times, like in this series, I'm just interested in getting everything set up really well. Although when we get to the point where we're wrangling asteroids, we don't exactly use maneuver nodes for that. It does turn into a lot of dead reckoning. And oh, look at this. So what's happening right now is our ship is actually traveling quite slowly. What's happening is Gilly is traveling very quickly around Kerbin in that, down and to the right direction. So, people make the joke, you don't land on Gilly, you dock with it. Same kind of thing. We're not being captured by Gilly, we're rendezvousing. So we are blasting our engines, speeding up, matching Gilly. Oh, yeah, one of the coolest things, by the way, is if you aerobrake around, well, I think Joule is the best example of this. You're not actually slowing down. What's happening is Joule is whizzing around much faster. Oh, no, look at this. Oh, that's mind-blowingly gorgeous. You can get a sense for how slow the spaceship's orbit is around Gilly versus how fast Gilly's orbit is around Kerbin. And indeed, it takes about as long to, do one orbit of Gilly as it takes Gilly to do one orbit of Kerbin. I mean, they're pretty close. Of course, it depends on your altitude and all that, but easily same order of magnitude. Anyway, I forget what I was saying, but time to detach. And, I've wised up a little bit. I realized we don't need actual engines. We can do this all with RCS. So time to thrust downward, slow ourselves down. Thrust downward. RCS is on. We have those nice big modules. Oh yeah, how about that? So I stuck these DP horizontal space base RCS modules on, and it didn't occur to me that they only point in 2 of the dimensions. So we have nothing pointing toward or away from our docking ports, which is a little tricky because, we need to be able to control our speed when we are on final approach, when we're actually docking with our existing craft, right? But, so we have to flip on our belly to slow down here, which I guess is basically how the horizontal space bases are supposed to work anyway, so that's not so bad. And now we've got to start traveling toward where we landed our first base. And oh, look at Kerbin still peeking over the horizon there. Just gorgeous. And then I notice, oh yeah, there's our booster stage whizzing down toward the surface. Well, as much as you can say that word on Gilly, it's still not traveling that fast. And here we go. 3, 2, 1. Nice, satisfying, meaty explosion. Except it could have been a little more satisfying. There was still some debris left. Oh well. Now time to go in on our final approach. I realize we're actually not headed straight toward the base because I was looking at, I think, orbital mode instead of surface mode. But, it's Gilly. Things happen so slowly. There's always time to fix stuff. Well, of course, we just saw earlier in the episode when I pointed straight toward the ground at full throttle for 30 seconds or whatever. No, there was not enough time to fix that. But if you're actually paying attention to what you're doing, it's very hard to mess up on Gilly. And this is just so weird, Again, gravity being so low, it's almost like piloting a blimp, just floating slowly in. We have to tip back on our heels to slow down. Whoa. Whoa, that solar panel, that's not cool. That's not cool. What happened to you? Are there krakens on Gilly? Is this where they live? I mean, I know that they like asteroids. Yeah, we better watch out for this kraken. He's crunching off our solar panels. Well, we got plenty left. No way that we can lose all of them. Okay. Well, the important thing now is we got to do this this docking without any way to control our motion forward or backward, without also screwing up our rotation or translating up or down or left or right. But this is what makes Kerbal Space Program videos interesting, I think, you know, when people find the blind spots in their missions and they have to improvise. And again, this is real time here, so we're not exactly talking about life and death. Again, this is Gilly that we're talking about. Here we go, nice approach speed, very gentle. And turn off the SAS. A little bit of bumping around, and we click in. And the orientation's maybe not 100% perfect, but it's good enough. All the legs are on the ground, it looks like. And now we've seen this before, so I'm going to accelerate a bit. Also, the lighting's not particularly great, so we'll speed up this footage. There goes our engineer Bill with his ground pylon. Bill, of course, has no depth perception. I mean, he has two eyes. He just never learned how to perceive depth, I guess, because he was created in Unity, and I don't know. I think there's a joke to be made here, but I'm just mumbling. I would love to play this with Oculus Rift. I know HOC Gaming has done that. Although I don't remember if... Yeah, I don't think that there was actually any 3D with that. I think it was just he had the head tracking working. But yeah, pretty snazzy. We got our living quarters, we got our science bay, and we'll get to asteroid wrangling soon enough. So good night, sleep tight, and don't let the Kraken bite. Bye-bye.